Do you always walk into a room and subconsciously just take the back seat? Have you ever wanted to venture out but lack the courage to even start? Do you always feel the need to respond to every call, or are you always compelled to be in everyone's good books? Or most of the time, do you manifest a sense of inadequacy? My name is Lila Mumbua and welcome to the Ladies' Dais. If you're new, welcome. I hope you get to like it here. And if you're a returning subscriber, thank you so much for stopping by once again. So today I want us to talk about a very interesting topic. I want us to look at some of the syndromes and mindset that we may not even be aware really affect us. Some seem innate, ni kama tu umezaliwa nazo. Some of them actually creep in unknowingly, and some are as a result of our environment and past experiences. And most of the time, the results are very negative. But do you know what the good news is? We can definitely overcome them. But how? Let's get into it. So our first syndrome is the spotlight effect, or the spotlight syndrome. And when we have the spotlight syndrome, we tend to feel like people are either noticing or paying too much attention to us. You know, we tend to feel like ni kama iyo spotlight iko upon us, trying to highlight our mistakes and our flaws. Let's take for example, umetembea to a supermarket, or even getting into a restaurant, or maybe in a forum. And when you get in, most of the time we tend to feel like ni kama kila mtu amestop, anaanza kukuangalia, anaanza kuwanda mse ni nani, anafanya nini, na nini hiyo amevaa na nini iko kwa kichwa yake. But you notice most of the time, pia wewe ukiingia in a place, or when somebody steps into a place, either a restaurant or even the supermarket, you also tend to look at them, but maybe not even for long. You take maybe a minute or a second to even notice them. But that's definitely the same when it comes to you. People take a second to look at you, but then they go back to their normal lives. So you have to realize that each and every single person definitely thinks somebody is noticing them too much beyond normal. But you have to remind yourself that nobody is paying too much attention to you as you might definitely think. Onto the second syndrome or mindset that we definitely need to overcome is the response anxiety. And anxiety is a feeling of nervousness or worry about an unknown outcome. So most of the time you just tend to feel anxious about something. So response anxiety is when you feel the need to respond to every call, text, or any request that has been made to you because you're fearing that the other person on that other end is already thinking, what kind of a person is this that they're definitely not picking my call? Uni rafiki wa aina gani ama uni msho wa aina gani? And I know most of us definitely suffer from this. It's just normal. When I feel maybe you need to respond to your mom's call immediately, hata kama unaweza kuwa uko job, maybe ama uko kwa meeting or something, or maybe your friend has made a request and you feel like, okay, I need to respond to this call immediately because I don't want to look like that bad friend, that person who cannot come forward to help their friend in need. But most of the time you need to realize that if the person on the other end is definitely sane, kama ni mtu ako sawa kiakili, anajua definitely mtu anaweza kuwa ameshikika, anaweza kuwa maybe ako busy, and that's why they cannot respond to this call or to respond to this text, or maybe come forward to help you with whatever request that you may definitely have. So when you find yourself dealing with this response anxiety, ni kama unaanza kufidget, unaanza kuogopa, take a breath and remind yourself that if the people on the other end definitely care about you and they're definitely good people, they're not paying too much attention to the fact that maybe you're not a good friend, a good daughter, a good sister, or a good partner. They understand that either you're not in the capacity to pick their call, or you're not in that mental space to definitely respond to whatever request they might be having for you. Another interesting mindset I think we need to kill is the fear of failure mindset. We're all afraid of failing, and I'm very sure most of us have definitely failed at one point in our lives. We failed maybe at our work, in our relationships, in ventures that we want to try out. But we realize that this fear of failure stems from a point of unaogopa maybe wase wataanza kusema mtu anajaribingi vitu anashinda kifail all the time. But who is better, the person who tries ama mtu mwenye anatulia hajaribu at all? So you need to realize that if you're trying to approach something, approach it from a beginner's mindset. Unajipatia room kufail, and you have to use these failures as stepping stones. You have to learn from these mistakes. I loved one thing, a quote from Thomas Edison when he said that he did not fail 10,000 times. He just found 10,000 ways in which an idea or a strategy did not work. So whenever these thoughts of I'm going to fail, mimi naogopa nikianza hii kitu sita make it, nitaanguka na watu watanicheka, you need to realize that it is okay to fail. It is part of life, and you need to do it afraid at all times. Well, we can look at another common condition or syndrome that most of us may not be aware really affects us, the people pleaser mindset or the people pleaser syndrome. Now this is a bit self-explanatory because I believe at one point in our lives we've all fallen victim of this kind of a mindset because we are afraid to say no to every request that is made to us. And if you look around maybe your circle or your environment, There's so many times probably you said yes to the request made by your parents or your friends or even your bosses or even your siblings, because anyway, you don't want to disappoint them. And I want us to confuse people pleasing with being kind. You can be kind and at the same time not be a people pleaser. And I know most of the time we want to believe that, okay, mi nataka kuwa mtu mzuri, nataka kuwa a good Christian, so you feel like every time you have to say yes to everyone. But you have to realize that you're not responsible for everyone else out there. You don't have to say yes to every request that comes to you, you know. And it's okay to disappoint people, because I want to believe that the reason as to why we say yes is because we don't want to disappoint people. And people pleasers definitely suffer from this. They want to say yes to everything, and when you say no, you feel the need to over explain, because ushaanza ku feel guilty kwa nini umesema no. So msana is make a request, maybe let's meet up, or I want you to do 1 2 3 for me, but because you're a people pleaser, you feel like, okay, let me say yes, instead of you maybe uko na makazi, pia uko na shughuli zako, and you realize that most of the time pia ukianza ukipatia watu request wanasema no, why don't they feel guilty about it? You feel guilty because maybe deep down you want to please everyone around you. So I want to remind you that it's okay to disappoint people. It's okay to be misunderstood by the people around you, and it's definitely okay to not be in everyone's good books. You need to remember that you're the only person responsible for yourself. You're not responsible for everyone else out there and whatever feelings they harbor to you because you said no to their requests. Last but not least, let's take a look at the inadequacy mindset. Simply, this is just a feeling of not being enough, and it can manifest in different aspects of our lives, in our personal levels, at our relations, and also in some of the spaces that we occupy. Often, this sense of inadequacy stems from comparisons. You start feeling that you're not voluptuous enough, you're not petite enough, or your complexion is not what you definitely need, or you're not even smart enough. Let's look at it maybe in the spaces that we occupy. For example, maybe you've gone for a board meeting, and people are required to share their ideas or even points regarding a certain thing or a topic, and you realize that because you're afraid to speak up, or because of this sense of inadequacy, utaki kuongea, and now your friend or a fellow colleague shows up with the same idea and they're applauded or even praised for it, you realize it's because your inadequacy mindset was already at play. Whenever this inadequacy mindset starts creeping in, you need to ask yourself, you're not enough compared to who? Because remember, you're the main character in your story. So everyone else out there is supposed to complement this life that you're trying to build for yourself. One of the ways you can overcome this inadequacy mindset is to constantly affirm yourself and to know that you got what it takes, and overall to realize that you can make use of what is at your disposal. And please, remember that you're never less. Whatever we've talked about today is just a tip of the iceberg. There's so many mindsets and syndromes that are holding and also setting us back. So feel free to share some of the other mindsets or syndromes that you feel the LD community needs to know about. And if you battle some of these syndromes or mindset, please feel free to share some of the practices that you use to overcome them. If you like this episode, don't forget to give us a thumbs up. And kama kawaida, subscribe if you haven't. You can equally connect with us on all our social media handles at Ladies Dias and at @LilaMumbua_KE. Thank you, and see you next time on this Dias.